Radio for readers, Bookmark.
This is Bookmark. I'm Marc Bernier. The nation's top authors are coming up next.
Bookmark.
Now, Jeremy Scahill. He is the author of Dirty Wars, The World is a Battlefield, New York Times bestselling author of Blackwater. He's joining us now for the Bookmark program here at Miami Book Fair. Jeremy, thanks for the time.
Great to be with you.
We had several listeners ask us, knowing you were coming here to tell us what the inside story was on Blackwater first. At what point does the government decide we'll use Blackwater operatives? How do they decide that?
Right. The word Kleenex is what we use to refer to all facial tissues now, but actually Kleenex is a brand. And Blackwater has sort of become the brand for the outsourcing of war, privatization of war. The U.S. government is entirely addicted to using companies like Blackwater, Lockheed Martin, DynCorp, Bechtel. The entire national security apparatus of the United States is outsourced. We're all following this NSA scandal. Edward Snowden, the former NSA analyst who was a contractor, took these classified documents and met Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, the journalists in Hong Kong. What that story has sort of shown us is the extent to which the national security apparatus is outsourced. And in the case of companies like Blackwater, it's actually hiring private soldiers, not just Americans. They can come from around the world to essentially fight America's wars.
How did it come to you that I need to put the book out now and I need to call it Dirty Wars? Yeah. Were we at a specific moment in history recently where you just said the book needs to happen now?
Well, I started covering wars when I was 20 years old in the 1990s. I'm almost 40 now. It's all I've been doing my whole adult life. And I've watched from President Clinton's time in office through the administration of George Bush onto Barack Obama, the U.S. really intensify its use of targeted assassination in counterterrorism operations. And I started early on in Obama's administration traveling to countries like Yemen, Somalia, Afghanistan, and realized that when it came to foreign policy, there is not a great deal of difference between the strategy that Obama has implemented and that of President Bush and Cheney. The difference is that Obama has sort of tried to brand it as though he's figured out a way to wage a cleaner war. And so I didn't call it Dirty Wars to be master of the obvious. It's sort of to push back against the idea that by using drones, somehow wars have become cleaner.
And there's a lot of talk now about whether drones should be used. On one hand, you won't find many people who disagree that their usage overseas saves American lives as well as innocent people who may be in the line of fire, but absolutely no drones in this country.
Well, there was this big uproar when Senator Rand Paul, who's a Tea Party senator from Kentucky, filibustered the nomination of John Brennan to be the CIA director. And none of the Democrats joined him in that. But for more than 12 hours, Rand Paul and a handful of his colleagues were reading into the congressional record all of this reporting about President Obama authorizing the assassination of American citizens in drone strikes. And Obama finally admitted that his administration has been responsible for killing 4 Americans in these drone strikes away from declared battlefields. And I think for a lot of the Tea Party people, the issue is they will demonize Barack Obama. If Obama loves drones, they hate drones, and there's political opportunism there. But I think for many Americans, the idea that drones would be used on U.S. soil, regardless of their political perspective, is deeply offensive, particularly in light of the revelations about the surveillance state. So we have this weird moment we're in now where liberals are sort of waking up to the fact that some of the policies they were against under Bush, they've been sort of quietly supporting under Obama. And then you have this growing libertarian movement that is very concerned about civil liberties.
How is America's fatigue with war playing into Dirty Wars?
Well, I think that I think President Obama and his administration were intent on the U.S. being involved overtly militarily in Syria. And the vast majority of the American people were against it. Some for purely nationalistic reasons, saying, I don't understand how it's in our interest to spend $2.3 million on each cruise missile we're going to lob at that country when we have an economic problem in our nation. But also, we've had more than 1 million Americans that have been in and out of these war zones. Military families are feeling the crush of these wars. And I think the country is just fed up with it. So what's happened is that the Obama administration is using more covert operations because they don't want to send the message to the American people, hey, your young people are going to be deployed in these war zones. We're still involved with them. And that's part of why it's dirty. What went down in Libya at our consulate at Benghazi when our ambassador was killed, there's a whole story about that hasn't been told. There were covert actions taking place in the lead up to the siege of our consulate. And yet what's happened publicly is that the Republicans have turned this into a crazy circus and the Democrats are just running defense on the White House and the truth is gone.
And Jeremy, do you think we're ever going to get the truth on Benghazi?
No. I mean, I talk to people in the special ops community. I don't think we're going to get it officially from the White House, but what we've seen with the aftermath of the bin Laden raid, with some of the recent actions in Somalia and Libya, with this snatch operation that they did against one of the guys responsible for bombing our embassies in '98, is that the operatives who do these actions are going to get fed up with the politicians, and they'll start to speak. So you could see some sort of pro-American whistleblowers who are, not of the sort of Bradley Manning or Edward Snowden variety, but are feeling like their actions that they were involved with are being mischaracterized by civilians in Washington, and will start leaking probably to more conservative journalists.
And then there's Syria. This plays into what you were talking about trying to fight a clean situation.
Right.
Limited involvement, limited strikes. But they announced it, Jeremy, so far in advance, it was like we practically gave them pictures.
Right. I mean, and look, the Muammar Gaddafi would possibly still be in power in Libya had the United States and NATO not gotten involved in an air war there, and then supporting these so-called rebel groups. The danger in Syria, I think the Obama administration was trying to make good on its promise that if Assad used chemical weapons, it's a red line, and they backed themselves into a corner, because I don't think that they expected such fierce pushback from liberals and conservatives alike in the U.S. So I think that they were more playing politics there. The reality is that Bashar al-Assad, the dictator of Syria, is a war criminal who should be brought to justice, and simultaneously that the U.S. and other nations are engaged in a proxy war there, where they are in some cases financing and arming individuals who are affiliated with al-Qaeda. And it's like we don't learn our lesson. Look at the history of what we did in Afghanistan. We had the short-term goal in the 1980s of defeating the Soviets in Afghanistan, and we ended up getting into bed with the very people who later would plot the 9/11 attacks. We're like people that leave a rake in our backyard, and it's in the same position every day, and we step on the rake and get whacked in the face every single time we go. It's like, move the darn rake out of the way, but we don't do it.
And then we have a situation here where just recently, the book's already out, and we're hearing the president of Afghanistan saying, you owe us an apology,
right,
and we still want you to have something here because we're not sure if we're going to get taken over. How's that working out with dirty wars?
Well, I mean, there has been a very intense dirty war that's gone on in Afghanistan. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know anyone in the military who thinks it made any sense to go in there at this point, outside of the initial goal of trying to dismantle al-Qaeda when it had a presence inside of Afghanistan. It's been years and years since al-Qaeda has had any significant presence there. They fled to Pakistan, and now al-Qaeda Central has splintered into these smaller militant groups, al-Shabaab in Somalia, Ansar al-Sharia in parts of North Africa, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in Yemen. In some ways, I think we've made the threat of terrorism worse going forward. Even though bin Laden is dead and al-Qaeda Central does not exist as it used to, I think we're going to see smaller groups of people plotting attacks, and I think we're going to be engaged in a sort of sustained form of asymmetric warfare for many generations to come.
Jeremy, did you find in your research that the intelligence community got smarter since 9/11 or stayed the same?
That's a tough question to answer. I mean, I think the CIA, the NSA, the various entities within the DoD, there are people there that I think really did learn a lesson from 9/11 and are intent on trying to confront terrorist threats. The problem is that I think political leaders and people on Capitol Hill, the only metric for success that they use, and the military feels a lot of pressure to come up with the answer to this, is how many people have we killed today? How many of these terror leaders have we taken out? My main concern at the end of the day is I think we've gotten to a point where we're actually creating more new enemies than we are killing actual terrorists. Because a tremendous number of innocent people have been killed. Most nations don't like the fact that we're using drones to strike in their countries. Drones have become an ominous sort of form of propaganda for al-Qaeda. They can say, oh, the drones, it's like Guantanamo. And I think strategically, as a nation, we have to step back and look at where we've come since 9/11, because I believe our counterterrorism policy is actually threatening our national security at this point.
How's the eavesdropping on our friends hurting us?
Well, I was in Germany when when the story broke that the NSA had been monitoring the encrypted mobile phone of Chancellor Angela Merkel. And look, every nation does this if they have the capability of doing it. I mean, China runs a massive surveillance operation across the world, that rivals the NSA's capabilities. Russia certainly does this. Germany, France, Spain, the countries where the revelations have come out, all are doing this to one degree or another. They don't have the kind of technology we do or the Israelis do. But I think that it's a pretty substantial diplomatic scandal. the president of Brazil was supposed to have a state dinner with President Obama, and just as we were on the eve of that, it was revealed that the United States had been doing this surveillance on her and other political leaders, and she actually canceled a state dinner. That's unheard of. That's like the golden prize of international diplomacy with the U.S. to have a state dinner, and the president of Brazil said, I'm not going to do it because of this. So there is some hypocrisy to it because they all do this and they do it to their own citizens.
They just didn't want people talking about it. We didn't need it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, put yourself in their shoes. The domestic public in Germany or in Spain learns that the United States is spying on their political leaders. Are the political leaders going to hold a press conference and say, well, we do this too, so it's understandable. This is how it works. No, you have to say, I'm angry about this and this is an outrage. And I'm actually more concerned about the surveillance that they're doing on ordinary people in the United States. There's a lot of misreporting about this. They are vacuuming up all of our data. And the idea, it's not that there's someone reading all of your emails or your chats online. It's that if they want to, they can. So all of this data is being stored. There's no such thing as a delete button anymore on any of this stuff. It's all stored on NSA servers. And they have a core mission to vacuum up all the details so that if someday, Mark, you end up involved in some criminal activity that has international implications, they can go back and reverse engineer your whole online history. The next president of the United States will have had probably a substantial portion of their life online or out on the internet. I mean, it's the kids growing up now, the political candidates that are produced there, they're on Facebook right now, they're on Instagram, they're putting all this information about themselves out. And simultaneously, you have the NSA taking it all down. So, I mean, we do live in a sort of default Big Brother society, and with those in power saying, "Oh, trust us, we aren't going to violate your privacy. We just need to hold all of your data for a while."
That's why I hear more listeners and viewers say, it's great to have GPS, but where's that stuff going?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I walk around. I have an iPhone, which all of my hacker friends say I'm insane for even touching an iPhone because you can't remove the battery from it. I mean, the technology exists to remotely activate the microphone, to remotely activate the camera. I've worked on some of the NSA stories with the top secret documents, and I can say that our understanding of the extent of the surveillance state, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. The other part of this is that corporations are engaged in these same operations against their competitors, against activists who may be protesting against genetically modified food from Monsanto or others. I mean, these companies also have a massive surveillance state. So as journalists who work on this stuff, we have to kind of become Luddites. You have to assume that all of your communications can potentially be accessed by powerful institutions or individuals or by people within the government. That's
why I hear it's almost Cold War mentality. People will not talk about certain things on a cell phone.
Yes. Well, and I think there's a degree of paranoia that I think, if you spend an afternoon on Twitter just looking at what people say about this, or Facebook, there's a lot of paranoia, but it's sort of founded in some form of reality. And what we've seen is the Obama administration basically is engaged in a war against journalism. Jim Risen of the New York Times is facing prison if he doesn't reveal his source and testify against his source. James Rosen of Fox News, he was named in a criminal indictment of a source of his. The Associated Press had its phone records seized in an effort to try to figure out who they were talking to within the national security apparatus. And at the same time, whistleblowers are being indicted under the Espionage Act, which this has never happened in U.S. history. It was passed in 1917 to go after collaborators with the Germans. It's now being used to go after people like Thomas Drake, the NSA analyst, who actually blew the whistle internally, went up his chain of command. They still tried to stick him in prison for espionage. Why? It's because this administration, like Bush before it, only wants official propaganda basically put out there. And it's sort of like they want state media. And to a degree, MSNBC is sort of like state media when Obama's in power, and Fox is sort of like state media when someone like Bush is in power. But that really is the message they're sending by default, while at the same time saying, we're the most transparent administration in history. It's just not true.
Dirty Wars. The world is a battlefield. Jeremy Scahill, our guest today on Bookmark. Jeremy, thanks for coming by.
Thank you. My pleasure.
That's Bookmark for this week. If you have comments or thoughts on future authors, send an email to us at our website, bookmark.us. That's our broadcast for today. Thanks for watching.